Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 892 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to discuss everything that happened over the last week in NXT and AEW, but not only that, we will be covering the latest from AAA as it moves into two significant events. First, this coming Saturday, and then next Saturday, May 30th, Noche de los Grandes. And of course, at the end of today's show, we will have your AEW Double or Nothing 2026 Ultimate Preview. So an absolutely loaded edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, as so many of them seem to be. So as we get into the show, allow the Silver King off the top to remind you that this program
is all about Defy.
So please head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, when you subscribe over there, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews as well. And in the profile link for all of our social media accounts, there are so many different things that you can click on, including joining our free Slack channel, going to WWE Shop as an affiliate, and finding every single platform on which the Getting Over Wrestling podcast is available. You can do all of it by following us on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, as I mentioned, we have a loaded show, but we actually have a loaded 2 weeks here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Already, we have your WWE episode for the week. After this episode, we'll be back likely Sunday morning with your WWE Saturday night's main event analysis. We, of course, did an ultimate preview on our Tuesday show. Then Sunday night, as soon as AEW Double or Nothing goes off the air, we'll have your Double or Nothing instant analysis. So that's 4 episodes this week. And then next week, we're going to have your WWE Clash in Italy ultimate preview on Tuesday, your NXT and AEW show on Thursday. And then Sunday afternoon, once it goes off the air, your WWE Clash in Italy instant analysis, where we will also most likely discuss everything that happens on the AAA show that prior Saturday. So you have at least 7 editions of performance-enhancing audio coming into your ear holes over the next couple of weeks. Make sure you subscribe and do not miss any of it. As far as today's show, we are indeed going to be talking NXT, AAA, and AEW.
But I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
And that is a huge item that popped up late Wednesday night. Ludwig Kaiser, real name Marcel Bartel, was arrested in Orlando on Wednesday for misdemeanor simple battery, not involving weapons, drugs, or alcohol. The incident occurred nearly a month earlier on April 24th, and Bartel turned himself into police when he arrived back in the United States after learning of the warrant for his arrest while he was outside of the country. He flew back the day he learned of the warrant, got booked, and was released on $1,000 bond. Now, Getting Over was able to obtain the arrest warrant. We were also able to dig into some of the court records. Bartel is accused of battering a man around 6:30 p.m. on the 12th floor of an apartment complex. The claim is that Bartel and a woman were acting in a, quote, uncontrollably intimate, unquote, manner in an elevator. And then when pressed for more details, the victim described it as aggressive kissing. So they were making out. The other man who was in the elevator with them claims he told Bartel, please have some manners when exiting the elevator, which led to him being pushed, threatened, and punched multiple times. Injuries were described as redness and a scratch. And the incident was caught on film, which, given records laws around the state of Florida, it's likely to come out at some point. This morning, Bartel pled not guilty, and his lawyers filed a motion that their client have permission to travel freely, both within the United States and internationally, due to his job. Considering this is seemingly a first offense, it's a low-level misdemeanor, and he literally returned to the country to handle it. Any outcome other than the motion being granted would be shocking. As far as the details of the arrest go, that's obviously one side of the story that is in the arrest warrant. It would be surprising to me personally if in reality Kaiser, while sober, lost his cool over someone saying, please have manners. There's always two sides to the story, and then, of course, the truth. My guess is the guy said something else. Got to imagine that. Either way, no matter what the guy said, that does not excuse physical violence. And it's undoubtedly a dumb move by Kaiser, given he is seemingly at a high point in life, both professionally and personally. I mean, we haven't seen him on WWE television in, I don't know, the better part of a year. But he has a beautiful new girlfriend, and I mean, he just seems to be having a great life right now. Now, considering, like I said, this is likely a first offense, it's a basic misdemeanor level charge. It would be shocking if Bartel faces any significant punishment, either from the state or for WWE. You're looking at a fine, maybe some community service. Based on his side of the story, it's possible the judge will toss this entirely. That's what we know as of now. And of course, the timing of it is certainly interesting given everything that is happening in his career and in WWE. And we will, of course, stay on top of this as it progresses over the next couple of weeks and potentially the next couple of months. So that was the lone news item going into today's show. I know that AEW did a ton of media leading into Double or Nothing, mostly in the New York area. Most of that media actually coming from MJF. It's, I mean, the same thing he has said over and over again. It's, here's all the reasons WWE is bad. Here's all the reasons why AEW is great. It's just monotonous to me. And I didn't really feel like going interview by interview, breaking it down, criticizing parts of it, praising parts of it. He just spoke a lot, and he said the same thing multiple different times. So again, that's why we're not going deeper on it. But we have a lot of show left. Okay. We have NXT, AAA, AEW, all to cover. We're going to do that in order. Before we get to it, though, allow the Silver King to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us financially. Keep the power on. Keep the shows getting published as we continue delivering performance-enhancing audio for your ear holes. Get some extra content too. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Okay, let's get this show on the road. As always, there are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around from one brand to another, or if you happen to be listening to this on the weekend and you just want your AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview, you can skip to the end of the show. There's a timestamp for that. As always, I do hope you listen to the entire program. We're kicking it off with NXT, then we'll move to AAA, AEW, and at the end, the AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview. North American Championship, Tatum Paxley defending against Lizzie Rain. This was the mid-show feature. Rain looked less rock and roll this week than the prior few. They did a bunch of mirror spots, including an extended strike exchange, and Callie Armstrong was shown watching backstage. Lizzie caught Tatum with a gut-wrench suplex and a running Samoan drop, but Paxley caught a clunky attempt through the ropes with a great step-up enziguri. Rain countered Cemetery Drive with a headbutt, but Paxley flipped backwards after eating a German suplex, only to immediately eat a flying headbutt. Lizzie caught Tatum's flip-over kick, leading to an extended counter sequence that ended in Cemetery Drive for the title retention. Rain appeared to land awkwardly on her head. She ended up being fine after the bell. Zarya attacked both women with a double spear and individual F5s to stand tall in the end. There were a couple rough parts in the final 2 minutes. The finishing sequence was what I would describe as messy, but that messiness made it feel like they were really struggling in a fight with one another. And it kind of worked in the end, especially the way Paxley hit her finisher. This was a tremendous match from bell to bell. Rain was not hurt at all by the defeat, considering how strong she's been booked since debuting. Tatum remains the most underrated talent in this entire company. She has everything necessary to succeed on the main roster, and the Zarya attack made perfect sense, as she previously stated her intentions with the title. She should probably beat Paxley for it. Ideally, the second time they fight and not the first, but it's okay if it happens the first time. Tatum has been built up strong enough during this reign where that would be okay. She can always move into the main event picture, or she can move over to the main roster in a group with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. We've talked about that multiple times. She proved here that she's a top-level star when given the opportunity. Killer segment from start to finish, 3.75 stars, B+. Kalani Jordan entered the ring for a solo promo, bragging about becoming a main player in NXT after just 9 months on the brand and saying she's the fastest homegrown talent in WWE. Neither of those statements are true. Lani put herself over for beating Kendall Gray, who others believe is the future, adding that she's better than every woman who got called up from NXT to the main roster, as well as every woman still backstage. Lani talked about tapping out Lola Vice, yet never getting an NXT title match at any point in her career, saying it's finally her time. Izzy Dame interrupted, not allowing Jordan to jump her in line, considering she pinned Vice and booted her head off recently. Lola interrupted and really didn't say much of anything, though she gave Izzy a title shot next week. Lani tried to protest, but Kendall interrupted. Jordan immediately cut her off while she was speaking. It was all a ruse, though, for Ren Sinclair to attack Lani from behind with a crutch, clearing the ring, and the faces stood tall in the end. This was a painful segment. Lani doesn't get many opportunities to speak solo like that, and you saw why. She was all over the place. What was notably annoying to me was how she kept saying woman instead of women, as if she didn't know the plural of the word in English, her native language. I also have no idea what is going on with her sideburns, but I digress. The segment was weird. Kendall had no leg to stand on. Ren attacking was getting a lick back, but it was out of place in a segment that didn't exactly call for it. Izzy again rushed her lines, barely said anything, and Lani cutting off Kendall immediately when she started speaking. That was super annoying. This just did not work for me at all. Kendall and Ren Sinclair backstage were proud of themselves for getting the best of the heels. Sinclair still felt guilt over what happened last week, but Grace said she's her best friend and she does not need to worry about it. Robert Stone then admonished Ren for using her crutch while not being cleared, but she turned it into a demand for a match with Lani next week, insisting she will be cleared in 7 days' time. I absolutely love Ren QCC as a unit. They work so well off each other, and Kendall is so much more personable with Ren as opposed to when she's pretty much on her own. We have so many examples of this now, and this was another one of them. Sinclair and Jordan, that's going to be a fun match next week as long as it gets time. So real good booking across the board in this backstage segment, even if I didn't like what happened before it. Tony D'Angelo and Miles Bourne fought Mason, Rook, and Cam Hendricks. Rook's entrance was a bit better this week. Hendricks looked ridiculous with his gear and his gloves. Rook hit a smooth Blue Thunderbomb on Bourne. D'Angelo had a tremendous hot tag with a pair of spears, plus a spinebuster on Hendricks, fall broken by a Rook senton. Mason avoided Tony D into the steel steps. Bourne took him out with a tope con hero. Cam was about to attack Miles, but when Tavian Heights ran in, seemingly to help his guy, he accidentally ran Hendricks into Bourne, and that cost him. Rook took advantage with a backpack cannonball and a fireman's carry jackhammer. Keith Lee's old Big Bang Catastrophe. You may remember that move. But Cam tagged in blind, stole the pinfall. The only flaw in this booking was Rook not showing a substantial amount of anger over Hendricks stealing his glory in the finish. He was rather emotionless there in the moment, just like looking at him a little bit. He raised his hand. I didn't get anything from his facial expressions. Other than that, this was decently impressive. It featured some of Bourne's best in-ring work. D'Angelo flashed as he always does. Rook got to show off a bit. And Hendricks had a ton of energy, even if he was clearly far below the other three in terms of ability and experience. Rook, he probably needs to rethink his gear. The singlet was not kind to his lower region. Like, he should not be out there wearing what Pete Dunne wears. And the truth is, look, Rook moves incredibly well for his size. Way better than I possibly could. I truly believe his ceiling would be raised significantly if he dropped 50 pounds. Now, let me be clear. I am not talking about him changing his overall size or the selling proposition of his character. I'm not saying he shouldn't be a big guy. I'm just saying if he was to lose 50 pounds with all the training and facilities that he has available to him now in the WWE Performance Center, which I think all of us would love to have, anyone who, has even considered getting a little bit healthier, it would help him move a lot better. It would give him so much more stamina and energy, and his work would shine through because of it. So it's not so much losing the weight to, make people feel better about him aesthetically. It's losing the weight so that he can still operate as a super heavyweight, but just move more efficiently and have more energy for longer matches. And I believe if he's able to do that, and maybe he will, maybe that's part of what his goal is or WWE's goal for him in hiring him, I don't know. But if he does that, I'm just telling you, let's say it happens in 6 to 9 months, right? Or even a year. You're going to look back and say, wow, him losing that weight made all the difference. Similar to what happened with Nia Jax. No one was telling Nia Jax, hey, you need to be a stick in order to be a wrestler in WWE. They did say, hey, if you lose a little weight, you're going to work a lot better. She lost that weight before coming back this most recent time, and her work has been so much better because of it. She has more energy. She's just moving around the ring better. You notice it, and I think the same could be the case with Rook here. Later in the show, Hendricks was back in the ring getting interviewed about pinning Bourne in the match. Cam said he was not focused on the North American title, despite pinning the North American champion, but rather the NXT title. And he had some slogan, lights, Cam, action.
Come on, Oos. It's a joke, right? It's a joke, Oos. You ribbing me?
That is horrible. Rook interrupted with Hendricks trying to dap him up considering their earlier victory. Mason gave himself credit, not only for deserving the win that Cam stole, but being the reason they won the match. Hendricks refused to relent. He insulted Rook's weight, so he got his head knocked off with a lariat, and he ate the backpack cannonball into the corner. Smart way to put Rook on the babyface side of tweener. He did well on the mic. Hendricks has so far to go. It is insane that he's anywhere near these titles after debuting a couple of weeks ago. He is green as goose shit. I'm not going to hit the fetch sound drop yet. I'm just telling you it's coming close. A couple more weeks of this Cam Hendricks, that thing is going to get hit for a long time. Lola backstage commiserated with Tatum, annoyed at having to deal with Izzy, Miles, and Tony. D walks into the picture with all four champions frustrated that their title pictures were getting complicated. Naraku approached D'Angelo at the end, saying evil will strike when he least expects it. I loved seeing all four champions together. That is something NXT does well that the main roster almost never touches. And it doesn't make a shred of sense why that you have title holders and they need to be separated by gender when they face similar obstacles. Naraku was the cherry on top, acting like an anime villain or a bad guy in a video game cutscene, laughing before he got into the picture, and then on his way out, he issued that warning, laughed in a dude's face, walked away. I mean, that's so good. He has done well so far in NXT. He hasn't done much, but he's done well so far. Long way to go. Tag Team Championship, Vanity Project defending against Dion Lennox and Saquon. Shugars, Dark State gassed themselves up backstage, with the other two putting over the competitors for working hard, training, and being on the same page all week. Lennox questioned what they meant last week, saying changes might need to be made if they don't win the titles, but Shugars basically told him not to worry about it because they're on the same page. They're going to get the job done. Vanity was later freaking out about the match given the numbers disadvantage, but Micah Lockwood was quick to calm them down, basically saying that she would handle anything that happens. This main evented. Everyone wrestled out of their boots at the opening bell. Dark State worked together well throughout, other than a momentary lapse, I would say relatively early in the match, but it was kayfabe. Lennox took out Vanity with a double lariat as Shugars got into it with Jackson Drake ringside before Lockwood stepped in. Saquon blind tagged Dion before he hit his spinebuster finisher on Ricky Smokes. That negated the cover, but Shugars flew in anyway with a huge elbow drop for a false finish, leading to a misunderstanding between the guys. Brad Baylor then knocked Lennox off the ring apron as Smokes caught Shugars with a small package to steal the victory and retain the title. Terrific match from bell to bell. In the B range, maybe a touch higher. Saquon was the obvious star, as he has been in basically every match that he's wrestled since he's been allowed to show his stuff recently. Vanity has this tremendous aesthetic where they are clearly Gen Z guys and Gen Z characters, but they wrestle using classic heel shtick and tactics like they're from the 1980s. They're just so good. Shugars was all broken up after the bell, slamming the mat out of anger and stuff. As he and Lennox stood there talking to each other, Osiris Griffin and Cutler James decided, seemingly on their own, to attack Saquon. It appeared as if Dion was not clued into the turn, but once he realized the others chose Lennox over Shugars, he acquiesced and attacked Saquon with a huge spinebuster. Saquon smacked him across the face, basically out of disrespect.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
Which led to them all going outside, where they hit their toss powerbomb with Lennox standing on the opposite side of the table. So the other two threw Shugars in the air over the table, and then Lennox grabbed him and slammed him through the table. It was a great visual and a nice change to the typical announced table powerbomb spot. Obvious and expected turn, to the point I believe we called it shot for shot, person for person on last week's show. But as we always say, sometimes predictable things are good, and this was definitely good. Most important is that Saquon is the one getting singled out, which means the NXT brass have finally acknowledged that he was the clear single star with the highest ceiling in Dark State. He's got the most in-ring skill, the most personality, the best look. Everything about Shugars yells to me that he is someone who should be NXT champion inside of the next 12 months. And this should just be the first step toward him making that trek. I loved the heel turn, the way they did it. Not the heel turn, the interfaction breakup, I guess is the better way to put it. I love the way they accomplished that. I love the person that they decided to single out. I loved the powerbomb spot outside. And I also loved, seemingly, that Dion was not clued in. So it was the other two guys kind of showing some agency and making a decision on their own, when to this point, they've been by far the number 3 and number 4 people in this group. The question, of course, is, are they going to remain a group? Are they going to bring someone else into Dark State and become a faction again? Might Keanu Carver make a level of sense? He's been a loner on this brand the entire time. He fits the aesthetic as being tough and, someone who's willing to take whatever the hell they want. And he's a beast, obviously. And if you want them to be a legitimate dominant faction, he might be able to work with them in that way. But again, it's not a character fit. So I don't necessarily know they're going to go in that direction. There might be some other choices on the roster I'm not thinking about, or they can just remain a trio and Saquon fights them and has to link up with some other people. Who's Saquon going to link up with? That to me is interesting as well. So I'm just really excited about the way this was executed, and I'm extremely excited for what this means for Saquon Shugars in the future. And by the way, I have been saying this for the better part of a year, ever since they debuted. I want to say they debuted at Stand and Deliver 2025. I could be wrong about that, Dark State. But all it took for Dark State to get over and for fans to care about them was attention being paid to the individual characters and the dynamics of the group. It's a tried and true method. You've seen it with the best and even some of the worst factions. When you examine personalities and spend time focusing on what these people are doing outside of the ring, the way they're interacting with one another, their different goals, all that stuff, naturally fans are going to care about them more. They're also going to pick sides and pick favorites. You've seen it with Judgment Day. You've seen it with D-Generation X, NWO. I'll go to AEW. The Inner Circle is a great example of a successful faction over there for an extended period of time. Like, that is what you need to do. You need to develop those interpersonal relationships. And when you do, it's naturally going to get over as long as they can work. And those guys, some of them are certainly better in the ring than others, but they're capable. They're all capable. And they just needed a little bit of a push. And over the last, I'd say 2 months, and then plus this angle, they finally got there. Sean Spears backstage told Nico Vance he got them a match against Out the Mud next week. Vance was bothered because it's the same show on which Dame is going to be challenging Vice for the title. And when she joined their conversation, she was similarly annoyed. Spears explained that it could be a huge night for them if all 3 of them win, but the others were clearly unconvinced. And that is now 2 weeks in a row where it seems like Spears may be on the outs of his own group. Dame technically took over as leader, about 3-4 months ago, I would say. But still, Spears was the one who put them together, and it's clear that that will not be the case anymore. The calling is going to split one way or another. I hope they just completely disintegrate, but we'll have to find out. I don't know what that would mean for Vance. And Dame definitely does not need to be with them anymore. Jada Parker backstage interrupted Layla Diggs and some other women watching a video of her on her radio show talking shit to Natty last week. Layla shaded Jada for losing a few matches recently, saying she idolizes Natty because of what she's accomplished and certainly doesn't want her career to wind up like that of Parker. They had to get physically separated with a match set for next week. This was Diggs' first notable NXT appearance. She's been doing Evolve previously. I want to say she was also on LFG. They were natural going back and forth with one another. Jada was notably calm and poised in this segment, which is unlike the way she has acted in prior situations. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with her booking. Perhaps we'll know better on the other side of the Natty feud. Romeo Moreno fought Tristan Angels. Moreno backstage put over Noam Dar for being a great wrestler despite his loss last week. He wears a Breathe Right strip, which just looks odd, but I presume he needs it. Angel's entrance was extremely basic and disappointing for someone who seems to have all this charisma and plenty of potential. I thought they were going to do something a little bit more flamboyant, but they didn't. Moreno hit a nice top rope splash ringside in the early going. Shiloh Hill watched from the crowd wearing a top hat, holding a Mr. NXT sign. He also had those binoculars that you bring with you to like operas and stuff like that. Angels got busted open hard way in his mouth before winning with what I can only describe as a knee stomp. Not a bad finisher, not something I believe he'll be able to keep for his career. Angels cut a promo on Hill after the bell, saying he's exactly where he belongs with the fans. Shiloh, who was also wearing a vest and tie without a shirt, said he was campaigning to become Mr. NXT, basically a counter to Angels legitimately being Mr. England. Hill flashed a picture of Angels in a similar but more proper getup, and that was really about it. The match was solid. Moreno was better than I expected. The post-match was incredibly annoying. I understand Shiloh was doing his gimmick to mock Tristan, but I could not have been less interested in that being the angle they took. It was neither funny nor fun. He's like a Looney Tunes character this time around when they were just getting like the right temperature with his gimmick alongside Tatum. Like they were hitting it and they were nailing it. And now he's a cartoon. And it's just not working for me. So hopefully this is short term and he goes back to being the guy he was previously. Later backstage, OTM showed a bit more personality with Hill, who subsequently got into it with Birthright as Born in Heights visibly argued in the background. Ariana Grace here.
I was up all night.
And I know some of you may want respect given to Izzy Dame earlier as well, so that can apply to her. I'm not giving them hey nows though. She was just Ariana in this segment. Ridiculous. Charlie Dempsey told Hill he was embarrassing the business, needed to be put in his place. I do not understand why Dempsey is continuously put in position to lose matches, never getting a push. It should be a damn good match between them next week, but we all know Hill's going to win. Dorian Van Duh and Sean Legacy commiserated backstage about Tate Wilder screwing everything up last week. Legacy informed they're fighting next week in another unnecessary and ridiculous speed tournament that no one wants or needs. We also had Wilder against Keanu Carver. Something about Wilder's aesthetic does not work for me. He has a Western risk-taker gimmick, yet he looks like Evan Bourne and dresses like a bland Jeff Hardy while having jet black hair. Carver has the opposite issue. His aesthetic is perfect as a prize fighter like Mike Tyson, and he had a banger new entrance theme that totally fit his personality. Much, much improved. This was the most surprising segment on the whole show for me. Easily the best bell-to-bell work we've seen from Carver, and a relatively flawless match in terms of them executing what they were trying to accomplish from a power versus finesse standpoint. Carver box jumped the ring apron, pushed Wilder into the ring post. He quickly got color by his eye that enhanced the visuals of the fight of Keanu beating the shit out of him. Wilder didn't go for a pin attempt after a frog splash. Instead, he tried a second one, which gave Carver an opening to pounce him and hit his new tilting spinebuster finisher, which is far better than the other bullshit he was using. I gotta tell you, we've been critical about Carver on this show over the last month, and it was ridiculous that he was around D'Angelo sniffing the NXT championship. That seems to be out the window. This lower mid-card role where he's fighting guys like this and getting his sea legs as a wrestler on television, this is exactly what he should be doing. I'm not here to tell you like he was an incredible wrestler and this was a great match. What I am here to tell you is that I said it a minute ago, it was flawless in terms of them executing what they were trying to accomplish. And outside of one brief moment where he paused Keanu and he didn't exactly know like where to position himself because Tate was taking longer than he needed to get up. Outside of that one moment, he didn't make a mistake in this match. And when you're talking about someone who has made many mistakes and looked incredibly clunky in multiple prior matches, that's a huge step in the right direction. So I might be buying some Keanu Carver stocks. That's all I'm trying to say coming out of this week's NXT. Overall, top to bottom, the 2 hours flew by. I was not able to watch live because of the New York Knicks. That, of course, is another game that's happening tonight, game 2 of that series. Game 3 is going to be Saturday. That is precisely why Saturday night's main event, by the way, is not going to be an instant analysis, but rather a Sunday morning analysis. I'm not going to be able to watch it live. But being able to watch this taped, it went a lot faster than it normally would. I was able to skip the commercials. But even regardless of that, just what they're doing from a character work standpoint, putting on quality matches, introducing a lot of new people, even more than I expected is how many new people they're introducing. It's just such a well built out show and nothing did not hit except for that women's in-ring segment, which had a lot of women who struggle to speak all in the ring together. So that wraps up NXT. Let's briefly move over to AAA before we get into the big week in AEW. We already covered the El Grande Americano situation from last week's AAA on our WWE episode on Tuesday, because we also got El Grande Americano on Raw Monday night. So this is just everything else that happened on the show. Now, there are folks out there, I wanted to address this. They're claiming that WWE is falsely advertising AAA Triple Mania by calling it the first ever 2-night event. Those people are partially correct in that since 2021, Triple Mania has been 2 nights. But what's being lost is that those 2 nights have been quite far apart. April and June, August and December, etc. The closest the 2 dates have been to each other was June and August, so more than 2 full months apart. This will be the first ever 2-night singular event in the same week, which is what WWE was trying to accomplish by giving it that moniker. I'm not sure you can really expect them to clarify that during a quick mention on television or in press material. The first ever 2-night Triple Mania where both shows are happening in the same week or in the same month. Like, why should they have to go to that extent? I think them calling it the first 2-night Triple Mania is completely fair, especially since the other ones all had different numbers. Like, it would be 32 and 33. This one is 34 2 nights. Anyway, there are some rumors about the first night of this show, which is airing on Friday, September 11th. It's going to take place in the United States. That's what a lot of people are saying, even though it's not official. Logistically, this seems crazy to me, okay? WWE obviously has SmackDown on Friday night. It also has a live event in Argentina as part of a 4-day South American tour. I cannot imagine them putting on 3 shows in one day across 3 different countries, or even 2 countries, but 3 different venues, which leads me to believe they might tack Triple Mania onto SmackDown somehow. Maybe they run WWE from 7 to 9. They do an early start, and Triple Mania goes from 9 until midnight. But that's a lot in a single night. And that's 2 disparate audiences potentially watching 2 shows in one venue. This is less than 4 months away. They're going to have to get moving on it, but I'm not exactly sure the way this is going to get put together, and I'm extremely curious to see what WWE does. Catalina thanked Lola Vice and Bayley for helping her last week. She called Bayley a legend. They all decided to do a trios match in 2 weeks on the huge show on May 30th. That's quite a rub for Catalina, getting Bayley as her partner. Well done so far with her. Ray Phoenix confronted Laredo Kid about being dissed last week when denied a handshake after their awesome match. Kid not accepting Phoenix's respect. Laredo told Ray he's jealous of both he and Penta for being champions. Phoenix said that's crazy. He's proud of his brother, but also he never lost the AAA Cruiserweight Championship, so he does want a title match. Laredo said Ray got lucky the first time that they fought, which was last week, and that title match, I believe, is happening this Saturday. I'm glad Phoenix is being used somewhere. Hopefully, there is some strong main roster crossover eventually, especially coming after that conversation with Nick Aldis last Friday. La Parka and Mr. Iguana beat Money Machine, Tokyo Bad Boys, and NGD in a 4-way tag team match. Iguana did a legitimately incredible counter crucifix driver, top-tier execution, one of the best ways I've ever seen that move executed. The thing about him is that he's actually a great wrestler underneath his gimmick. The first time seeing NGD, they didn't seem more than a typical heel team to me. Bad Boys had some phenomenal spots. La Parka won with Bonebreaker, an excellent spinning power slam finisher with a great name. War Raiders beat the shit out of everyone except the winners after the bell. Ivar looked like a monster, hitting one of Money Machine guys with maybe 20 back elbows in the corner. No exaggeration. They would be a top 2 or 3 team on the main roster today. Easy B+ match. Raiders seem to have something going in AAA, and you know Silver King is a fan of Money Machine. Tejano Jr. and Cybernetico met with Maricelia Pena about the potential general manager job, upsetting her son, who continues to push for it. I presume the eventual choice this weekend will be no one who has been teased or shown, though I also figured a babyface legend like Tejano would be in play. I believe that announcement is set for this Saturday show. Galeno, El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr.'s brother, beat 2 jobbers. His name is literally just Doctor Galeno. That's what it means in Spanish. Galeno looked like a masked King Kong Bundy. I'm serious. Same look, a little bit trimmer. Rey Mysterio said it was the first time he's ever seen a handicap match in Mexico. I'm going to take him at his word there. I have to imagine it's happened before. These guys bumped their asses off and made him look like a monster. Omos entered to watch as Galeno hit a cradle spinning brainbuster and threw the partner on top of his guy like he was a stuffed animal for the 1-2-3. It may have been a top 20 squash match I've ever seen. Like, it was that entertaining. Now, we will do a preview of AAA Noche de los Grandes next week in this space. The card right now is Máscara contra Máscara, El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. against El Hijo del Vikingo for the Latin American Championship. Pagano and Psycho Clown, who are at odds against the War Raiders for the Tag Team Championship. You might see that change. And the big women's trios match, La Catalina, Lola Vice, and Bayley against Las Toxicas. This Saturday show, it should have, if memory is serving me, Phoenix and Laredo for the Cruiserweight Championship and the GM announcement, plus I'm sure some go-home stuff for Máscara contra Máscara. All right, so that wraps up everything that happened in the world of WWE across its disparate brands. Let's go ahead and move over to AEW, where first we are going to discuss everything that happened on television that perhaps did not directly translate into a preview of content for AEW Double or Nothing. We'll hit all of that first. There's plenty to cover. And then we will give you an extensive AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate preview on the back end. As I mentioned earlier, there are timestamps in the episode description. So if you want to jump right to the AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate preview, you can check again right now and do exactly that. In terms of match relevancy this week, for AEW, again, it was over when it came to relevant matches on Collision last weekend. That's 2 weeks in a row. What motivation is there for me as a fan to watch that show outside of possibly fast forwarding to find a quality match? Overall, 6 of 15 matches were relevant, so 40%, which was positive for the Go Home Dynamite, as that 3-hour show went 6 of 9. But again, why are only 2/3 of your Go Home show relevant? Like, you have to ask yourself that question, right? It's your go home to a major pay-per-view. Every single thing that happens should matter for the pay-per-view, or should be directly building something for your TV show immediately after the pay-per-view. So let's go ahead and discuss everything that happened on Dynamite and Collision that does not necessarily fit within the confines of our Ultimate preview, which will be on the back end. On Collision, AEW Championship Darby Allin retained over Sammy Guevara in the main event. This transpired from Ring of Honor. Guevara bragged about being a 3-time TNT champion compared to Allin being a 2-time champion. He also promised he would shave MJF bald too, which reminded me how ridiculous it was that Darby was defending the title twice a week with a stipulation pay-per-view match ahead. Sammy hadn't had an AEW TV match since January. That was a loss. He hadn't won an AEW singles match in literally 12 months, May 2025, yet he's getting to challenge for the top title. Darby later explained that he keeps defending the title because he's crazy, and he also accepted Mike Bailey's challenge from last week. This was another no countout match, which apparently meant it was also no DQ because Sammy immediately pulled out tables and a ladder while making his entrance. Those are completely different stipulations, no countout and no DQ. Guevara hit a swanton bomb off a tall ladder through a table just a couple of minutes into the match. They could have simply done all of this before the bell, and it would have made logical sense. Nope. Could not do that. Other than that, they wound up wrestling a mostly clean match. Nice avalanche Spanish fly plus 2 GTH and a Spanish fly from Sammy for a false finish. I think that was 2 Spanish flies, unless I wrote it twice. Unfortunately, Tony Schiavone screaming on commentary made me want to jab my ears out with skewers. When the show ended, he literally screamed, "We love AEW." Yeah, you should, Tone. They're paying your bills. Allin avoided a 630 senton into a table outside, landing a coffin drop back inside to retain. One gimmick during this match was that Darby nearly passed out and collapsed while having Guevara in a Scorpion Deathlock. The idea being that he's wearing himself too thin with all of these challenges, and it's going to cost him sooner than later. That gimmick absolutely works for what they are doing with all these title defenses. But let me come back to that in a minute, not only after the next one, but really when we preview that match. Solid here, 4 stars, A-. On Dynamite, Darby again defended the title, this time against Bailey. But backstage before the match, Darby said he feels pain, and it's been great to experience being champion. He did not answer the question about why he's been defending the title so much. Instead, he focused on playing mind games with MJF over his hair. Then he repeated twice that he'll do whatever it takes against Speedball, which is just really funny to refer to a main title opponent by the name Speedball. Short video package came after this. Jet Speed had a convo backstage before the match with Kevin Knight saying he wanted to challenge Bailey when he beats Darby. The dude literally just challenged and lost an AEW title match. Like, why are you even saying that? MJF was on commentary here, basically talking about his hair the entire time. Bailey missed Ultimate Weapon, so Allin followed with Coffin Drop, only for MJF to help Speedball with a rope break. Knight confronted him over it, but he didn't act. Bailey moved La Magistral into a straitjacket cover for a false finish. That was a great sequence. Then he hit a roundhouse kick for another. Darby did a Scorpion Deathlock, Coffin Drop into the legs, and another Deathlock for the submission retention. 4 stars, A- for the match. Allin continued selling his exhaustion after the bell. Extremely well done overall, though not a great go-home segment. MJF was hardly involved in anything when the 2 hours of Dynamite ended, before they flipped over. Knight put over Speedball after the bell, and then he filleted Allin for being a great champion as the heart and soul of the company. He said it was up to Darby to humble MJF's arrogant ass, and after he shaves him bald, I'm not even sure what he was saying next. Maybe that they'd celebrate with him. He also told Darby not to let the fans and everyone backstage down, which seemed like a strange way to phrase this, considering our expectations for the match. We will come back to this momentarily in the Ultimate preview because a little bit more did happen. On Dynamite, Roosh demanded a title match with Darby next week if he retains at Double or Nothing. And then he said his catchphrase. You know, I was sarcastically stating the last 2 weeks that AEW was giving Roosh meaningless matches and victories to set him up for a title match because that's what the company does so often. When I said that, I figured he was going to go after the TNT title or the national title. So I legitimately laughed out loud when this guy was on screen challenging for the AEW title. These are the people he's beaten since he returned: Adam Priest, Stephen Fuerte, Manny Lowe, and TJ Crawford. Have you heard of any of them? Making matters worse, he lost to Darby in a no countout match in March. 2 months ago, he lost to this guy. So in what world does he deserve a match for the title, the primary title in a company, with that resume? Horrendous logic. And he got that squash over Crawford in 60 seconds on Collision coming out of this. Absolutely horrific.
So dumb.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
On Collision, Jon Moxley led a Death Riders promo after last week's Dynamite, criticizing himself for failing every time he's gone up against Kyle O'Reilly, noting how Kyle has tapped him out twice. Mox said he's a different guy than he was 6 months ago as he continues to improve, but even though O'Reilly has his number, he will find a way to win. Claudio Castagnoli told Brody King he needs to bring the bite along with the bark. Marina Shafir then called random people bitches. Great promo from Mox here. Unfortunately, this preceded a match with another major AEW logic gap. O'Reilly's match with Mox on Dynamite was set as an eliminator. Considering how many people in AEW get undeserved title matches, I just named a bunch of them, why the hell is this an eliminator when O'Reilly has already defeated Mox twice and Mox just said in the promo that Kyle has his number? If there is anyone in the entire company deserving of a straight up title match against Mox, it's Kyle for the Continental Championship, by Mox's own admission. So why the hell did he have to earn the opportunity through an eliminator? That does not make a shred of sense.
The way you Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me?
So on Dynamite, we got the Continental Eliminator. Mox and O'Reilly fought to a 20-minute draw given the division. As such, O'Reilly earned his title match and declared individually there would be no time limit in Mox's forthcoming defense. I suppose the idea was not to hand O'Reilly an immediate loss after he returned and restarted the feud with Mox, hence the eliminator before the championship match. But as I said a moment ago, with 2 clean victories already in his bag over Mox, doing an eliminator in this situation was the height of absurdity in the first place. So now they put the title match on a pay-per-view to ensure Mox is on the show and that it runs until 1 a.m. On Collision, there was a trios eliminator match. The conglomeration beat Shane Taylor Promotions in the show opener. Mark Briscoe competed for the champions, even though he was not part of the title winners and it was never established as a freebird. He did not carry the title, best I could tell, though the gimmick hides them in backpacks anyway, which is kind of stupid in its own right. No reason for the match happening at all. I did not mind the matchup, though, because it was an eliminator. Again, this made sense as an eliminator because they didn't deserve a title match yet, whereas Mox and O'Reilly did not make sense because O'Reilly did deserve a title match. Later backstage, Tommaso Ciampa attacked Briscoe all the way down to the ring. When Briscoe was about to hit Jay Driller into some chairs, Ciampa low-blowed him, wore him out with a chair, and then got stopped from doing a superplex into some chairs. Nice brawl segment. These two match up well together as they did on Dynamite when they fought. Briscoe beat Ciampa in an anything goes match. This was the TV bout of the week. Ciampa tugged Briscoe off the top rope, through a table ringside with a chain around his neck. Great spot. Then Ciampa used a cheese grater to completely open up Briscoe's forehead. Awful spot. Disgusting, with a full dark red crimson mask for the duration. Briscoe took paper and got stapled to his head. He stabbed Ciampa in the face with a screwdriver for a second crimson mask. Ciampa did a pump knee covered in thumbtacks. He missed the shot, though. Briscoe then pulled Ciampa off the top rope, spine first, into a couple of open chair backs. That was my favorite spot of the match. He added Jay Driller through a barbed wire table ringside and hit Froggy Bow for the win. I'll tell you this right now. You take away the 2 juice spots from this match, it is just as good as it was with them. That's how unnecessary they were, especially considering it was bringing back to life a feud that had been dormant just a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't change that the match was fantastic, but I can't sit here and say I enjoyed those spots, even if some of the other work was tremendous. 4.25 stars A. On Dynamite, Tag Team Championships were on the line. FTR beat Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong to retain the titles. The Faces had earned the opportunity in that title versus title singles challenge. I'm not sure why it would be run this close to the pay-per-view with a big match on the other side. They could have done it last week. Orange took Shatter Machine for a broken fall, then got defeated when Stokely punched him in the face with a watch. That's worse than needing the finisher. It was weak as shit, in my opinion. On Dynamite, Athena and Triangle of Madness beat Brawling Birds, Marina Shirakawa, and Thunder Rosa in an 8-woman tag team match. I was generous giving this relevancy credit. It's not abnormal to shove a couple feuds together on a pay-per-view go-home show, but man, this was thin. Thunder took the fall as the only person not competing at Double or Nothing, or I guess the only person or group not competing at Double or Nothing, after she took Mist to the face and got rolled up. The Mist has not mattered for the better part of, I want to say, 2 years, so it just felt like kind of cheap. And the roll-up finish, you know I hate that regardless of promotion or division. On Collision, Samoa Joe and Anthony Bowens beat Lethal Twist, another irrelevant match. Bowen said he's been confused for an entire year, but the Ops are a group that understands that he's the pride of professional wrestling and the fans' hero. He deserves a standing ovation for that. He also credited Joe for teaching him. As I've always said, the pride of pro wrestling gimmick, it is exactly what Bowen should have been rolling with since he returned, not the 5-tool player bullshit or anything else. Fine promo from him. On Collision, the TBS title was on the line for some reason. Willow Nightingale retained over Red Velvet, another undeserved random opportunity. Velvet hasn't wrestled on AEW TV since November and last had a singles win on AEW TV in February 2024. So ridiculously lazy. Willow literally said in a pre-match promo, "Welcome back to AEW," and here's your title match. Nightingale also had her title in a backpack because I guess this month she's fully affiliated with Conglomeration again. On Dynamite, Willow said that despite having a great career in AEW, winning the TBS title back from Mercedes Moné allowed her to prove herself, and she promised, when doing so, that she would fight any challenger or she didn't deserve to be champion. Then Nightingale announced that she injured her shoulder in that aforementioned meaningless match against Velvet, which means that she not only has to pull herself out of the Owen, she has to relinquish the title, which is precisely why you do not have your champion wrestle meaningless matches against undeserving opponents, particularly ahead of a pay-per-view. This already lackluster Owen bracket on the women's side now has 3 of the 8 women in it injured, with this one becoming a wild card spot. So the match against Alex Windsor was pulled off of Double or Nothing and replaced. Unfortunate situation for Willow. She's one of my favorites in AEW. I love her disposition. Her booking has been absolute dog shit since she won that title. On Collision, Anna Jay backstage basically revealed that she re-signed with AEW despite not saying as much. Ty Mello ran into the picture saying she's also back. So they're going to be a jobber tag team again. At least that's what I took from it. On Collision, Mark Davis and the Dogs beat the Rascals in another random match. Speaking of random, Clark Connors beat up a stagehand because he knocked over a box of toothpicks. On Collision, Nigel McGuinness interviewed Leo Rush backstage about something that happened on ROH, but at least it was shown in a brief video package before the segment. Leo said everything was fine and he was acting normally. Then he took a sip of black liquid, removed his glasses, and was back to being the creature. I'm glad he's trying something. This is not for me. On Collision, Divine Dominion beat a couple jobbers in 110 seconds during their second 5-minute challenge eliminator match. And then on Dynamite, Dominion beat 2 more jobbers in 3 minutes. Holy shit, is this tag team division in the dregs. All the teams that were developed, they're either broken up, irrelevant, or they're fighting singles for no reason when they should be getting built up for All In. It's clear the Brawling Birds are going to win the titles on that show, but holy shit, is the rest of this so bad. Not even real matches against women on the roster tagging up with one another. Just waste of time crap against jobbers. That's what you have these 2 dominant champions doing right now. Absolutely horrendous. Okay, that's everything else that happened across Dynamite and Collision, so let's get into the AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview. Now, before we break down the entire main card, we'll talk about the buy-in. And the big news there is that Mick Foley has signed with AEW to seemingly be a broadcaster. He's going to join Renee Paquette on the pre-show panel, I guess, for buy-in, which means some of those other people who have done it before, I want to say like Big Show, Jeff Jarrett, RJ City. I mean, frankly, this is a huge upgrade with Foley, replacing those guys. But he's going to be there with Renee. And now we're going to find out what his role is with AEW. He denounced WWE due to their political affiliations and inability to withdraw themselves from visually being on screen with that person. It's slightly ironic to me that he's joining AEW despite who the owner has contributed to from political donations, where the show airs. Let's just say there's a lot of stuff happening with AEW right now that if you really look at it with WWE, it currently airs, in addition to Netflix, certainly, which is not fully bending the knee, let's say, right? It's also airing on an NBC and an ABC affiliate station. Similarly, 2 networks that are not necessarily doing that. Then you look over at where AEW airs, and it's doing a new thing on TikTok, which is controlled media through somewhere else. And it's like, I know Mick made a stand and I'm proud of him for doing it. And I support it individually, even though I'm not trying to get my politics into the show. I promise you, I'm not trying to say that. But it does seem somewhat hypocritical that he has no problem joining this company where there's somewhat similar ties, even if it's not nearly as direct, but still. Anyway, he's going to be on the buy-in with Renee. There's going to be a 10-man tag featuring the Conglomeration and Big Boom AJ against Shane Taylor Promotions, which is literally happening for no rhyme or reason, no build whatsoever. The faces will obviously win. And I'll tell you a funny story too. Last weekend, I want to say it was Saturday, I went to Costco because sometimes that's something you do on a weekend. I'm walking in Costco, and who do I see but Big Boom AJ, his son, I think a family friend, and I think his wife. And I just laughed my ass off. Apparently, Big Boom AJ lives in Boca Raton, Florida, and goes to the same Costco as I do, and yet I've never seen him before in person. So I saw him. I was going to stop him and say, hey, you know, it's cool that you work in AEW. You're going to be working there again anytime soon. I probably would have had a scoop if I had done that, but I didn't. So Big Boom AJ is going to be on this show. The faces will obviously win that match. There's also going to be another Divine Dominion eliminator against Zeta Steel and Viva Van. At least these are slightly more legitimate opponents. I still can't imagine them lasting the time and getting the title match. So that's the buy-in. Knowing AEW, they're going to announce at least one, if not two more matches for that, but they haven't at the time we are taping the show. So that is just what we are not going to be able to cover. I believe as everything stands right now, there are 9 matches on the main card, but there are not 1 or 2, but 3 Owen Hart tournament quarterfinal matches here. Not finals, not semifinals, opening round matches on what has traditionally been the biggest show of the year. For me, this is simply inexcusable, especially because only one of the 3 has some semblance of a storyline. Another was built from the standpoint that like the match was mentioned before, but there was no real reason behind it. So it's just super frustrating that, they threw random matches on the card is the way I look at it, without much rhyme or reason, just to have high quality wrestling, which is great. We love that. It's the best part of AEW. It's the selling point. But I still want storyline behind things that you're putting on a pay-per-view, especially. So let's go match by match. We're going to discuss any go-home content that we need to cover. Of course, we'll give you a pick prediction, and we'll discuss what we believe is going to happen going forward for any of the individual wrestlers, titles, or storylines. So we'll start with Mina Shirakawa against Athena in an Owen quarterfinal. They had a contentious backstage segment on Collision ahead of their tournament match. At this time, it was not planned for the pay-per-view. Athena said she'd leave a dead body in a ditch next to Toni Storm when she beats Mina. Mina said she'd live her dream of being AEW champion. Unironically, this was one of the better parts of Saturday's Collision. Solid promos from both of them, clear motivations, good heat, no real notes. Undoubtedly a better match for this show than Willow Windsor would have been from a booking standpoint and an in-ring standpoint. I'm going to assume that Athena is winning this match. I can't imagine they have the forever ROH champion lose a meaningless quarterfinal. If she's going to lose, it's either going to be in the semifinal or in the final. I wish I had more to say here, but there's no storyline for this, so that's really all we have. Bandito is going to fight Swerve Strickland in another Owen quarterfinal. On Collision, footage was shown of Swerve attacking Bandito at a Ring of Honor show, during which he had retained his ROH title. He seemingly hit a vertebreaker into a chair, Swerve did. Bandito then had to stop Brody from trying to fight his battles for him, and he cut a brief promo on Swerve because, again, there was no storyline or anything regarding the initial challenge. It's almost less now that it's a tournament match. What I was wondering watching him speak with the title on his shoulder, if Swerve wins, does he get a championship match? If not, why wouldn't he? So that's going to be really interesting to see. On Dynamite, Bandito attacked Swerve from behind during an entrance for an interview segment. It's here I realized Strickland's entrance music changed again. He's no longer doing the most dangerous song that fit with the gimmick. He used the song before he earned the title by beating Brody. They brawled for a bit to an extremely strange conclusion where they just stopped fighting, and Swerve left. In terms of the match, I could actually see it going either way. Swerve is not in the midst of the title picture of any kind, so he could definitely lose this and just get rehabbed on the back end by beating the shit out of someone else. At the same time, I just can't really imagine putting Swerve in this tournament and not having him advance at least one round. So I do have Swerve beating Bandito, and seriously, on the back end, he should probably get an ROH title match, and that would be a huge match for any of those. I don't think they call them pay-per-views, the ROH special events that they have on their streaming service. Like Bandito and Swerve in a rematch main event for the title, that would be enormous. So I'd have Swerve win here, probably lose in the next round, and then fight Bandito for the ROH title if I had the book, which of course I don't. Will Ospreay is going to fight Samoa Joe in the other Owen quarterfinal. Ospreay cut a calm promo that aired on Collision, referencing his time off due to injury and being dejected due to not only losing his return match, but struggling in other subsequent bouts. He said he's annoyed that he didn't get revenge on Mox, but more upset that he isn't the ace of AEW. Ospreay said there's nothing he can say that will make people understand why he is with Mox and the writers. That is literally the height of absurdity. We can't explain this storyline, so we'll simply have the protagonist say it's inexplainable. Incredible creative right there. You got to give him credit for it. Basically, he told Joe nothing would stand in his way when it comes to winning the Owen. It was a fine promo other than the absurdity. Joe later yelled at him and said nothing interesting. We didn't see Ospreay on the Go Home Dynamite, though he was on the third hour, technically Collision. He beat Katsuyori Shibata with a hidden blade. This came after 10 minutes earlier, Renee explaining to us how Ospreay had a new finisher, the flying armbar, called Death Ground. So they went out of their way to tell us about that, and then he didn't use it to win the match. Again, like, what are we doing here? Relevancy credit, Shibata is basically a henchman for Joe, but again, pretty thin. Joe cut a promo after the bell saying he'd make Ospreay suffer because he chose not to be his friend. He said that they'd have a dream match because he's going to put Will to sleep. Ospreay tried to cut a passionate promo afterward, asking how can you kill a guy who already died in the ring? Then he reiterated how important it is for him to fight for the title at Wembley Stadium because he will have an entire company and entire country on his back. Not a terrible promo. It would have been a lot better not airing at 10:30 p.m. I don't know why AEW was hiding a guy who they are planning to have main event a stadium show on the go home for another pay-per-view. Stadium Stampede. Jericho, Hurt Syndicate, Jack Perry, and The Elite against The Demand, The Dogs, Andrade El Idolo, and Mark Davis. Dynamite opened with the Bucks actually recalling the negative history with Jericho and the Inner Circle. I'm glad that was referenced, especially since he asked for forgiveness. Also, I realized during this promo that he's no longer using his first name, Chris, which I do not understand. He's just going by Jericho. But it was a fun interaction between them. Then on the show, Jericho and the Bucks lost to Ricochet, Andrade, and Davis. The Dogs interfered to help the heels win after Jericho and Ricochet went through a table. Perry saved with a sack of onions for some reason, and then everyone wound up brawling as a match preview. Solid go home across the board here. Doesn't necessarily change that this match is completely random, even if it should wind up being a spectacle, considering there's 14 people involved, and I don't think there's ever before been more than 10. I want to say maybe they did 12 once, but 14 people is definitely a lot. It's just, when you look at these teams, it's Jericho and the Hurt Syndicate who teamed up due to convenience. Then Jack Perry and the Elite fighting with them, like, for what reason is really like the answer. You have the Demand linking with the Dogs, who have no relation. The Dogs have somewhat worked with Don Callis' family, which is why Andrade and Mark Davis are there, but they're randomly in the match, just chosen for it. Davis is there, I think, because of Perry. He beat him for the national championship. It's just like, why are we doing this match? You know, we talk about WWE all the time having like real confounding booking for War Games. It's not being strong enough to necessitate the stipulation, or the teams being a little bit odd the way they're put together. Look at this. I mean, like, what is this? And why are they doing this? I understand they want to do Stadium Stampede because they're in a tennis stadium, and that's cool. But just why not put more effort into putting a match together that makes sense and people really care about, because the stakes, there's something at stake. It matters. Here, nothing matters. Whatever side wins, it does not matter for the next Dynamite. I'm going to have the baby faces win, mostly because when you look at the heel side, and this is always a good way to predict a match like this, you look at, well, who's going to take the fall in this match? The only person who cannot take the fall in this match is Andrade for the heel side. Every other person there can take the fall. And then you look at the babyface side and you say, well, the Bucks are probably involved in a main event storyline for the tag team titles at all, and they can't really lose. Jeff Perry just lost the national championship. They're not going to have Bobby Lashley lose. Jericho losing probably shouldn't happen. Shelton is strong enough where he probably shouldn't lose, though he could. There's so much more on the heel side to take the L. So we're going to have Jericho, Syndicate, Perry, and the Elite win Stadium Stampede. Continental Championship, Jon Moxley defending against Kyle O'Reilly. No time limit. The Riders were randomly in a circle doing push-ups backstage after the earlier draw in the match. The match was mentioned as set for the show, despite it not being accepted or confirmed until that moment. Mox, in a promo, thanked O'Reilly for putting his back against the wall and getting the mindset that he needs to be in to retain the title. He said Game 7 is the only thing that matters when all is on the line. This would technically be Game 4 with O'Reilly working on a sweep, if we're being completely accurate to sports parlance. They're doing the no time limit. O'Reilly theoretically could have won this a couple months ago before he left due to injury. He's currently a trios champion. I don't see any reason for them to switch the strap. And why are you going to have Mox lose this title when he's in the midst of being Ospreay's trainer in a somewhat still unexplained storyline? So you have to have Mox retain here. What I'm going to be curious about, because they've done this before. They do the no time limit because there's a draw and an eliminator preceding it. I'm really curious how long this match is going to go. Is it going to hit 20? If it does it go 23 where you get the no time limit and it's like you could have just added 5 minutes or made it 30 minutes with the time limit or whatever the case might be? I'm just really curious to find out the way this is going to go. As I said, though, Mox retains the title. Women's Championship, Tekla defending against Jamie Hayter, Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander, the single match in this card that makes me more angry than anything else. Tekla on Collision called her 3 challengers dumb bitches during a brief video package. Shida said that she would be on the same page with Stat. We heard Hayter and Stat speak, but did not see either of them. This was nearly as lazy, this video package, as the match booking itself. On Dynamite, Shida cut off a Stat promo, continuing their contentious relationship. None of this is good, and as I've said previously, the booking of this women's division and this match is total bullshit. Women who have already challenged and lost and did nothing to deserve or set up another title opportunity, let alone a 4-way, all got thrown into a match. It was booked out of nowhere, announced in a bottom third graphic on television. They didn't even have Tony Khan show up on TV and announce it. Hey, we decided to put a ton of challengers on Thekla because she did something terrible backstage, and she needs to have as much adversity as possible in this match, or these people earned them, or they did qualifier matches to do a multi-person match and they all beat singles opponents and then earned their spots. None of that happened. They literally just made a match out of thin air. Because of that, there's no reason to believe anything other than Thekla retaining the title. Excuse me, Tekla. I mess that up sometimes. I can't see Stat winning it back. That would be odd after they took it off of her to boost Tekla. They gave up on Stat, basically. Shida coming back. She hasn't really done much of anything, and her character right now is not something that should be champion. Hayter is in the tag team with Windsor, and they're the Brawling Birds, yet all they've been doing is wrestling singles for the better part of 6 weeks or so. And they're going to be a tag team at All In, which is still a few months away, obviously. But it wouldn't make sense for her to be champion, drop the title, and then do the tag team match at that big show. So, yeah, Tekla retains the title, and I can't see this mattering once Double or Nothing is over. Tag team championships, and this is way later than I normally would have covered this, but that's how unimportant so much of what we already discussed has been. FTR defending against Cope and Cage in an I Quit match. This was first a street fight, then it turned to an I Quit, and the tag team career of Cope and Cage together is on the line should they lose. Cope and Cage cut a go-home promo where they really didn't say much of anything other than Christian getting a pop for saying that they would F up FTR. Of course, Cope, his promo was solid, even though he didn't say much of anything. He's a great talker. He always is, and he does a good job hyping up the match. There was no other real go-home. FTR had the match against Conglomeration, but Cope and Cage weren't involved, and this is something that they had been hammering us with on every single show. And they've just backed off of it immediately before the pay-per-view. And there's another match we're going to talk about that's exactly like this. Regardless, I assumed, incorrectly, obviously, that Cope and Cage would win the titles in Canada. Then they would take them into All In. They'd probably, have a rematch against FTR, probably face the Young Bucks, 2-on-2. They'd take the titles all the way into All In, at which point the Young Bucks would win. They'd probably retire, or at least Copeland will, and then the division would continue on without them. That didn't happen, obviously. They lost the titles in Canada, or lost the title match, in Canada, and now they're getting another opportunity in New York, which much bigger show, way more people at it, don't get me wrong, but there was something special to them winning in Canada, I thought, and instead they didn't do it, and that's just confusing to me. But I do have Cope and Cage winning here. I don't think they're going to split up their tag team without winning the titles in AEW. AEW absolutely wants to have Edge and Christian as part of their championship lineage. And because of the stipulation especially, and because the I Quit allows FTR to be, chicken shit heels as opposed to getting pinned, which heaven forbid FTR get pinned. It just makes all the sense in the world for the titles to change hands here. It'll be a huge moment. Maybe it'll get them a little bit of press that Edge and Christian are champions again, even though their names are Cope and Cage. And then they can take the titles into All In and almost certainly do a trios match at least with FTR and the Young Bucks. That match could certainly expand and become a 5-way. You bring in New Day, Motor City Machine Guns. Both of them are going to get signed by AEW. The other thing you can do is the 3-way match and then have both of those teams debut at the end. And it's this huge moment on All In. And everyone's going crazy because all these teams are now in AEW. They have a real chance to seriously beef up and improve this tag team division. And I do like the concept of Cope and Cage winning the titles, taking them into a big show, and then passing the torch to, I say the next generation, but most of those teams I just mentioned are pretty damn old. But the current generation, let's call it instead. So Cope and Cage walk out as the new champions. International Championship on the line, Kazuchika Okada defending against Konosuke Takeshita. Coming into this week's Dynamite, I realized how the build for this match, after being seriously consistent for months, has basically become non-existent since the last pay-per-view. There was a 30-second preview on the Go Home show, and that is it. Quite frustrating considering for all of those months where they've been building it in the background of the Don Callis family, I was looking forward to this match more than anything else in AEW. This should have been way more intense the last few weeks coming into the show. Instead, it's been almost nothing. And I don't understand how that's possible when this is, for me at least, the co-main event of the show. The only question in terms of predicting a winner here is whether they are going to fight again. Because if AEW wants to run this match back at All In, then it would make all the sense in the world for Okada to win here. Obviously, in a situation that maybe Takeshita gets screwed in some way because the entire Don Callis family turns on him, and then he has to bring himself back to a position where he challenges for the title again, overcomes the entire faction, overcomes Okada, wins the title on the biggest show of the year. That's one way for it to go. If that is not going to happen, if they are not going to rematch, then the only option, as far as I see it, is Takeshita beating Okada. They can try to cheat, fail, whatever the case might be. Takeshita wins, goes off as a babyface, leaves Don Callis family, and becomes super over in AEW. Those are the only two options. Because there is so much on this card, and I'm already projecting there being 2 title changes on the show. I think there's only, let me do a quick count, 1, 2, 3. There's 5 title matches. I don't think they're going to change more than 2 straps. So I'm going to go ahead and have Okada retain the title through Don Callis family cheating of some kind. Maybe it's even, I don't know what Kyle Fletcher's health status is right now. It could be him coming back to help out. It could be Okada using the screwdriver. It could be Callis deciding that he wants to ride with Okada over Takeshita, even though Takeshita is a young guy and he really should be siding with Takeshita. But if you want Konosuke to legitimately be a babyface going forward, and he has been on the face side of this feud the entire time, he's got to face additional adversity than he already has when it comes to Kaz. So I have, and I believe this is the right booking, Okada retaining the title here through some nefarious means. They wind up rematching, and in that match, Takeshita beats Okada, basically gets crowned the next Japanese, major sensation, the greatest wrestler in the world from Japan, and becomes the new international champion. I just don't think it's going to be on this show, but if it does happen on this show, I would not be surprised at all, as long as it's a one-off and they're not trying to rematch. And finally, the main event, AEW title versus hair. Darby Allin, the AEW champion, MJF with a full head of hair coming to him from Turkey. The go-home for this was saved until the 3rd hour of Dynamite, which was Collision, head-to-head against the meatiest part of the Western Conference Finals, Game 2. Terrible decision not to do this earlier in the show. MJF waited in the crowd until Jet Speed left the ring and took Darby down from behind with a lariat. Despite them not having gone far, they easily could have known that this was happening by the time they hit gorilla position. They didn't come back out to save their guy, the other babyface. The beatdown was short before MJF grabbed clippers and tried to shave Darby's head, which would have been an improvement, by the way. When Allin flipped it around, MJF scurried out of the ring and grabbed his own hair, scared that he was about to lose it. Now, I've long maintained that the hair stipulation, to me, feels like a completely unnecessary part of this match. A significant segment of the fans are clearly into it, so if I'm in the minority on it, totally fine. But given the way Darby won the title, the story around his reign, MJF having already been embarrassed by losing to the dude in a squash initially, the idea that his hair is somehow more or as important as the title, it's just ridiculous to me. Especially since, again, shaving his head doesn't really accomplish much of anything. It's not like the hair disappears and he would have to go get another surgery. It would just grow back. That's the whole point of doing this. It's not that you never get a haircut again and there's just hair sticking out of your head, like a chia pet or something like that. It grows like a normal human being. They just are doing a replacement. Regardless of any of that, I felt like the storyline between MJF and Darby, MJF getting embarrassed the way he did, losing the title, it was strong enough, and MJF's a great enough promo where the hair aspect, to me, it's just kind of dragging it down a little bit. They keep focusing on the hair more than the championship. And it's like, no, the title's what matters. That's why involving the hair was a step too far as I was concerned. Now, regarding Darby's title reign, I've seen a lot of people putting this over in a huge way. I saw a person call it generational. In order for something to be generational, it means it's going to get passed down. Like, people decades from now are going to be talking about a title reign. This is not generational. If you love it, if you think it's one of the best title reigns in AEW history, I mean, I disagree with that also. But okay, I can accept that opinion. It is not generational. Let's be very clear about that. From a match quality standpoint, I agree that it's been awesome. It's been really entertaining to see Darby wrestle and survive all those matches. Logically, though, turning your company's main title into basically the equivalent of an open challenge stipulation for me is incredibly silly, especially considering who challenged for it. The timing of going in this direction was also quite strange. Don't forget, it was not more than a couple months ago that a number one contendership was so valuable, the top main event stars in the company had to compete in a series of qualifiers for one of them to challenge for the championship. Now you have Darby giving out opportunities left and right to people who do not deserve them. And even worse, all of those people who were scratching and clawing for those opportunities, none of them, all of them are all more deserving than people who did get opportunities. None of them took this opportunity to challenge for the title. Why didn't Swerve try to get a match? Why didn't Andrade get a match? Why aren't people like Bobby Lashley and other main event caliber talents trying to make something happen and get a match? That would be the logical move. Instead, the main title got treated like a TV title. Darby, if he had made 4 defenses against deserving challengers, each of them having a 2-week storyline, would have been far better and more logical while making the title feel huge compared to 8 defenses against mid-carders who randomly decided that they were deserving of a championship opportunity. This is the logic gap that is so problematic with AEW. Even when they tell a story, it often does not make sense. There was no drama to any of these matches because you never felt as if Darby might drop the strap because he never defended it against someone who you could see being AEW champion. Now, look, this may wind up being wrong, what I'm about to say, but it truly felt like AEW was indicating, you know what, man, this is the one time you're going to hold the title. Get it all out of your system now and have a great reign based on defenses rather than time, because we're not going to give you the time. We can't stomach having you hold that main title for an extended period. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of people pointing to the ratings going down in 4 consecutive weeks since Darby's been champion, and we don't know as of this show what they're going to be for Dynamite. To me, that's bullshit for a couple of reasons. 1, Nielsen keeps changing their formulas. 2, they're going up against the NBA playoffs just like WWE is, and ratings are down across the board. So I don't believe that Darby being champion has directly led to lower ratings, but him being champion has certainly not increased ratings. It has not stemmed the tide in any meaningful way against the NBA. And that to me does speak volumes, because if he was that popular as champion, if it made that much sense, if fans were that bought into it, then they would be watching the product live, not wanting to miss whatever title match is next. Anyway, that was me, pontificating about the entire feud and the concept of the title reign. In terms of a prediction for this title versus hair match, Darby against MJF. Look, this is one of my other issues with the stipulation. I don't see any scenario in which MJF shaves his head. I don't know why you would do that. It doesn't make any sense. They could. It would be the ultimate embarrassment. But then he needs to be gone from the company for a while to grow that hair back. Then he's completely out of any championship picture with the biggest show of the year forthcoming. So even if you were going to have him lose and then somehow get another match and then win the title there, he's going to do that bald. And to me, that doesn't work. Also, they've been, laying it on, real thick with the bald stuff. Not in a bad way necessarily. The fans are into it, which is great. They did the segment backstage at Dynamite that I loved 2 weeks ago, where he was walking and every person he came across was bald, and it was a whole gimmick. Like, they've done a good job in that regard. So he's already gotten the embarrassment out of the way. Now he's going to win the title. So MJF walks out of Double or Nothing as the new champion. The only issue I have with that move is basically the way they've been talking about Darby the last couple of weeks. Like, Kevin Knight said it in that promo, like, everyone's counting on you, bro. We're going to be super let down if you don't stand up for AEW and defend the company from this evil MJF. Well, if he fails, then what? What is Darby Allin at that point? And I don't know the answer to that at all. But, you're going into All In. The match that seems to be the one they're booking is MJF defending the title against Owen Cup winner Will Ospreay, ultimate heel against ultimate babyface in England, as he said, and we discussed earlier, putting not just the company on his back, but the entire country on his back. Like, MJF has multiple times run the American gimmick, so he's going to get a lot of heat doing that again, bringing the flag out in England, especially given everything that's happening from a geopolitical standpoint right now with our countries. So, that's the match that has to happen. The other option is Kenny Omega. He's nowhere near the title picture right now. So I have MJF beating Darby. I think it's going to be a fantastic match. I do believe it's going to be the match of the night. MJF wins, takes the title all the way into All In, faces Ospreay. Ospreay wins the title at All In. So that wraps up our AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview. As always, before we get out of here, we give you a pre-show expectation grade, what we believe our grade is going to be in the instant analysis after we watch this show. And despite a lot of criticisms I have for the booking of this show, and I know I laid them out all, and you think Silver King is about to be negative, I actually believe this is going to be a great show. When you look at not just match quality, but what it will mean or could mean for storylines going forward, Darby and MJF, Okada and Takeshita, I am fully believing in both of those matches. The tag team situation, the way I laid it out, I'm excited to see what happens there going forward. Then you talk about matches that aren't really that relevant or don't necessarily matter that much in the grand scheme. You have Stadium Stampede, could be a spectacle, so that might be great. Continental Championship, Mox and O'Reilly, we've already seen them put on 3 great matches, so that's going to be really good as well. And then you have all those quarterfinals that we thumbed our nose at because of lacking storylines and the fact that they're quarterfinals on this show, and yet Mina and Athena has a chance to bang. Ospreay and Joe, I would be floored if it didn't. Same thing goes for Swerve and Bandito. So from a in-ring quality standpoint, this should be a great show, and I just believe there's enough around it that this is going to wind up somewhere in the A range. I'm going to start with a 90 A- as my expectation. That gives AEW a good amount of runway to exceed my expectation and even fall below and still be a show that gets a pretty damn good grade. So that's a 90 A-. All of you will have an opportunity to vote in our pre-show poll. We are going to post it on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter. We'll do a pre-show poll and a post-show poll. As always, we reference both of those grades that you all deliver your average in our AEW Double or Nothing instant analysis. We're going to do it through the weekend, both for Saturday night's main event on Saturday and AEW Double or Nothing on Sunday. But we're also going to post polls in our Slack channel, free Slack channel. You can find it in the link in our social media profiles at Getting Overcast. Twitter recently, it seems like they've been suppressing the polls, and we really haven't gotten a lot of votes. So if that's going to continue, I'm not going to waste my time posting those polls on social media. I'm using the polls in our Slack almost as a backup. I will combine the grades, and we will evaluate how much participation there are in these polls, and that will determine what we do for Clash in Italy and every premium live event and pay-per-view going forward. So as I said, follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. Not only can you vote in the polls, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments that we will read on the air. Every long-term listener knows we do exactly that. Also, please do not forget,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us as we deliver performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right. That wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back with 2 instant analysis podcasts on Sunday, the WWE Saturday Night's Main Event and AEW Double or Nothing. And then next week, a 3-episode week covering WWE Clash in Italy. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.